Hello and a warm welcome to Notts TV Book Club, a time and place to talk about books with me, Becky Cullen. It's time to get down with the kids for a special show looking at two young adult reads. Wild East by friend of the show Ashley Hickson-Lovence and Furthermoor by Nottingham writer Darren Simpson. And joining me this month are a trio brimming with dewy youthfulness. We have poet and educator Leanne Moden. Hello.
Hello.
Poet Connor Brown, but not Connor Brown from the Forest Under-21s. Hello.
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not. And writer Polis Louisu. Hello.
Thank you for calling me young, thank you.
Hello, brimming with dewy youthfulness panel. Let's find out what you've been up to. So Leanne, welcome to the show. First time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Now, tell us about your poetry podcast and the intriguing poetry takeaway.
Yeah, so I'm part of a group of poets who've started a poetry podcast. It's called We the Poets. And the idea is that we talk to poets and we have chats among ourselves. And it's really all about talking about the highs and lows of being a poet, whether that's like the business of poetry or like the business of actually writing. And the people who are on it with me are Mark Grist and Charlie Jennifer and Keely Mills, and we just have a little chat, and we're on series 2 now, which is really exciting. And series 2 has some really cool guests coming up, like Raymond Antrobus.
Oh, super.
Yeah, and Holly McNish. So that's gonna be
Superstars.
cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
We'll come back to the takeaway, but let's take ourselves away to Connor. Connor, you're developing some new poetry at the moment, I believe.
Yeah, so I was working on one project and then I did the typical creative thing of sitting on it too long, not enjoying that anymore, and then realising that a third of that book was just 6 lines or less for the poems.
Okay.
And I still really enjoyed those. So now I want to transition into turning that into a project where I just pursue writing poems that are 6 lines or less, nice and short, easy to write in a burst, and then
Easy
just putting
to
them all
remember for performances.
out. That too.
Yeah, well, it sounds really great. I love short poems, so that will be fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, and good luck with that, Connor. Look forward to seeing that. Hello, Polis.
Hello.
What have you been up to then?
Different things. I'm working with Gobs Collective. As you know, they're a brilliant organisation based in Notts that do sort of spoken word performances and workshops and meetups, socials, book clubs, everything. Like, they're very good. Zine making stuff, like loads of stuff. They're really great. Trying to get people involved in spoken word. But I'm also working with a swing band at the moment. Yeah.
How do we find out what is the name of the? First of all, what's the name of the swing band?
They're called Down for the Count.
Fantastic. What kind of music do they play?
Well, it's like swing and jazz classics, but sometimes they're a 10-piece and sometimes a 30-piece orchestra.
Wow,
And
what a sound.
Yeah, it's amazing. And they're coming twice to Nottingham this year in June and December.
How do we book tickets?
Downforthecount.co.uk.
I love Down for the Count. That sounds great. Down for the Count Basie.
Yeah,
Is that what
well.
Musical accolades all over the flipping place. Right, so let's get on to our books of the month, shall we? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Our books of the month are Wild East by Ashley Hickson-Lovence and Furthermoor by Darren Simpson. Furthermore is Darren's 3rd novel, all of which have been selected as recommended reads for children. It tells the story of Brent, who's constructed an imaginary world called Furthermoor, in which his sister Evie is still alive. Bren comes up against bully Sean and his henchmen, escaping to Furthermoor until a mysterious figure forces him to confront his fears. Wild East deals with some of the same themes, and while he was in the studio recently, we asked Ashley to give us a quick intro.
Hello, my name's Ashley Hickson-Lovence and I'm the author of Wild East. Wild East is a YA verse novel about 14-year-old Ronnie moving from East London to East Anglia and trying to survive as a young boy and stay away from the attraction of county lines. I'm honoured that Wild East is Book of the Month, and I hope it resonates with all the readers.
Fabulous. Big fan of Ashley, as you know. We all are fans of Ashley. We've got little badges and everything. So that's a good question to start with. he hopes this book resonates with readers. What did you think? Let's start with you, Connor.
Yeah, so going into it, I initially thought, yeah, I can think of so many names of people I know that have had a similar experience in the story. So right away, you're able to, even if you've not experienced the things in the book, you know of someone that has. So it is quite gripping for that aspect, and just the way that the character is presented of Ronnie is someone that you can't help but get to sympathise with and love and understand the struggles that he's going through. So yeah, it's just a really, really solid book in terms of the resonance.
Great, thank you. Leanne, you are from Norfolk.
I am.
In
Sorry.
which, I mean, we have adopted you.
Yes.
In which Norwich is placed. So what was it like to read about something which is kind of from your own territory, as it were?
Yeah, it was really lovely. Although I'm obviously not the same generation as Ronnie, and obviously not from the same place he is, because he's originally coming from London and then moving to Norwich. I sort of felt like this book was completely made for me, because Ronnie's in love with creative writing. He moves to Norfolk, and he does all these kinds of like really lovely, charming things. Like he wants to do the right thing, and he uses creative writing to get him to be doing the right thing. It's really lovely.
It's a book which really resonates with you if you write, doesn't it?
100%.
What did you make of it, Polis?
I really enjoyed it. I was really expecting it to go certain ways, because, you know, the way it's set up, that you think, oh, I know what beats it's going to hit. I know, you know, he's going to go to Norwich and encounter racism and then get drawn into county lines and then all this. And it just sort of skillfully dodges cliches and just sort of, it became a book about black boy joy, which I think is so rare. You rarely see something that just sort of, they're having a relatively pleasant time as he discovers himself and his creativity and knows what he is willing to do and live with in life and how he wants his life to be. So yeah, I really loved that.
I really like there's an encounter. So spoiler alert for everybody. So there is a violent beginning to the book. Ronnie's best friend is stabbed, actually, and then later on there's another instance where Malachi, a character that he meets in Norwich, comes to the same end. And there's a kind of, I think it's a really clever thing, or a really skillful thing, to be able to balance that with the amount of hopefulness that Polis is talking about. I really loved the character of Ronnie, but I loved Malachi as well. What did people feel about the different characters in the book? Well, all of them. I love the non-binary character who becomes Miss Delamere. Fantastic to have that kind of roundness and breadth and richness about the narrative. Somebody want to comment about that?
With Malachi, because I thought, again, that was a very interesting way to present what could have been a very two-dimensional or even one-dimensional character. Where he has these moments of tenderness, like with the deer. Not deer, whatever it's called. Muntjac. I'd never heard that word. See, I learned something from reading this book.
I didn't know what a muntjac was.
No, I even lived in East Anglia. I probably encountered them. I don't.
Probably eaten them. No, I'm joking.
I've been a vegetarian for a long time, so definitely not.
But yes, great tenderness.
But yeah, just showing these different facets to him, so you didn't hate him.
No.
It was very good at presenting him as a human being.
He was like, oh no, Malachi. No, Malachi. Leanne?
All the characters were treated with such compassion, and their mistakes and the behaviours and the things that happened to them and the things that they did within the story were also treated with like real compassion. I was worried when the mum's boyfriend came in and squared up to the ex-boyfriend, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then it turns into this lovely, like joyful football match in the back garden.
And then they have a hug.
And it's so nice. It's
great.
just, the whole story really talks about like that hope and compassion for humanity in all its forms.
That's a really good point. Now, as three poets in the, well, four, I can include myself. None of us have mentioned the form of this book. Connor, what is the great thing for poets, but people generally who aren't poets, about this, the way this is written?
So it's the rhythm and flow of the book. You know how sometimes you pick up a book and you go, because again, it's tackling some heavy things.
Yeah.
You go, okay, I'm going to need to put that down for a bit. Because of the way it's formatted,
It's in verse, it's got illustrations.
yeah, you're able to sort of read on through these things, and it does help with the hopeful aspect of it, where just the way that you are forced to read it, it does take you through on a journey with it, and you feel more involved in that story, and you're able to just not really put the book down, and you know, I want to keep reading, which I don't love long form poetry or prose a lot of the time. So the fact that I can say that about this book says everything that it needs to about this book.
Yeah. So it's got a kind of dynamism, hasn't it, that the lyric form brings to it. Really like the playlist, really like the illustrations, like the illustration of the shattered glass at the beginning is really beautiful. Has anybody listened to the playlist?
Not actually.
I was saying I should, and then I forgot about it. I was saying the form of it as well, being in verse, celebrating the form, the actual art of it as well, and just goes with the story.
Taking the art form forward. Thanks for now, panel. Join us again in part 2 for more book chat and Jaden's recommendations. Again, welcome back to Notts TV Book Club, a time and place to talk about books. And we're talking about the young adult reads Wild East by Ashley Hickson-Lovence and Furthermoor by Darren Simpson. And here to hang about in the park are poet Leanne Moden, poet Connor Brown and poet Polis Luiso. It's all the poets. So let's have a chat then about your very own book recommendations. What have you chosen for us today, beautiful panel? Leanne.
Okay, so my recommendation is a book called The Murderer's Ape, which is by Jakob Villius. I think I'm pronouncing his surname right. It's Swedish in translation, and it's about Sally, who has to go on a quest to save the captain of her ship. But Sally is a mute ape. And it's the best book I've ever read.
Really?
It's middle grade, but it's wonderful. It's set in the Edwardian period. It's rich with detail, and it's lovely to have a protagonist who isn't human, because they're an outsider on the world.
Thank you very much. Connor.
So mine is probably a little bit out of the age range that we're looking at, but I have to mention Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zavine. It's just a sensational read as someone that loves games, so getting to explore the history of that in a way that's telling a story of these characters who you really get to know their background, and there's so much diversity in the main characters as well. And it's just, a history lesson in games and a lovely story about...
It's beautiful.
Yeah, just friends.
Love story,
yes.
friendship story. And it's the book of the month next month. You heard it here first. And over to you, Polis.
Oh God, so many actually, because Wild East made me think of Angie Thomas's The Hate You Give, which was a brilliant book about black rights. And I mean, I love The Murderer's Ape as well. That was a very good one. And it also reminded me of a book called Love That Dog. I think her name is Susan Crouch, who wrote it, and it's about a boy who's been forced to write a poem. It's for younger readers than Wild East. He's forced to write poetry, and he hates it, but then it brings up all his emotions about his dead dog. And so it's all in verse as well. And it's just this beautiful little book about a boy's relationship with his beloved dog.
Brilliant recommendations, panel. Congratulations. Let's move on, shall we? So we need to talk about Furthermoor. Nottingham writer Darren Simpson, his third novel. So let's start with the same question. What resonated for you? Should we start with you, Polis, this time?
Yeah, I mean, I love Darren's books. I've read all of them now. And I, like, as a kid who was, former kid, I'm no longer a kid, as someone who was bullied at school, it really resonated with that, and the sort of idea that you kind of retreat into yourself and you want to fight, but you also don't want to fight, and you don't want the attention on you, but you're also, you know, that you kind of have to not give in. So I found it all very relatable. I thought it was very, very beautifully done.
And that you find a way to navigate the physical
Yeah.
world
And even
to
escaping
keep
into
out
fantasy.
of trouble.
Escaping into a
And
made-up
escape into
world.
fantasy. It's written for you,
It
Colin.
was, it was.
How about you, Connor?
So for me, the best thing about the book is the fact that it gives you the themes and it tackles it in the book, but you can also take those on any level that you need to. So in terms of the escapism, like Polis was saying, the fact that you get to relate to that so much, and we've all had those times where we kind of just retreat into our shell a bit, and the fact that that's explored in the book aside the real world, and one isn't treated any lesser than the other. They are both as real as each other. They both affect Bren as much as each other, and I just love the balance that's struck between that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So they've got the same heft, the same emotional heft, if you like. And Leanne, you've obviously read fantasy books quite widely.
Yeah.
What did you make of this mechanical fantasy world?
It's so lovely, and what I really liked about this was it was a fantastical element, but it's not a straight fantasy. It's the fantasy is all in the mind, and it's all about coping, and particularly with Bren, it's about coping with the bullying, and also about this is a novel about grief and the different ways in which Bren and his mum and his dad and the people around him who don't know how to relate to him. I think it's really skillfully and subtly a book about how we cope with negative experiences.
Yeah, and about how to reconnect or how to become more visible in the world almost. There's the figure of Featherly, the figure of the perceived lack of courage that Bren has, who taunts him in Furthermoor to do something and take a stand. What did you make of him as a villainous character?
I love the fact that they weren't actually that villainous character for me. They kind of came along and obviously painted in this quite dark manner and mysterious, and you don't really know their intentions. And it's kind of one of those where that figure to me became sort of a tough love character, where it's kind of, without that character, Bren may not have taken the steps that he did. And it's about how you sort of navigate that, and the fact that you have these grey areas with that character, I think, and can have the discussion point, is also really skillfully done.
Yeah, so clever the way that it's important that Bren, the central character, doesn't eradicate Featherly, you know, that he acknowledges that this is part of him, and he actually learns from that, and it becomes part of his kind of inside group of emotions. Polis?
Yeah, he's even a way of letting go of his sister as well, and that grief that is hanging over them all, because, you know, he's got to, well, I won't ruin the climax actually, but that's quite pivotal, because he could be the destruction of Bren. So he represents your own self-loathing, but you can choose to go beyond that, or just try to get beyond that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Very briefly, before we finish this discussion, I think it's a very contemporary discussion, particularly as everybody's been watching adolescence. You know, we've got two books about young, struggling boys here. Do you think there's a correspondence? What can we do for young boys with our fiction to help them in these really tricky times? It's a really big question. Connor, just answer that and solve all the problems of the world for us.
So I think one of the great things that particularly Wild East does is it takes this character that in society, young black male, is not allowed to do poetry, is not allowed to feel things, is very much stereotyped in a very particular way. And I think having that character not only exist as who he wants to be in himself, but also putting that character amongst so many different people as well. So you've got a character that's a refugee in the book, you've got the non-binary character, and just having all these people coexist. And I feel like that's the key that these books have, where they just take this character and they just go, this is who they are. You may not see that as a typical male, typical black male, typical whatever, but that's fine. This is who they can be, and having the story based around them is just the key way of doing that.
That's a really good point, and thank you for summarising it so beautifully for us. Thank you very much. Thank you, panel. Earlier on, I caught up with the one and only Jaden Morton, who shared his fabulous book recommendations for this month.
The first book I've chosen is a book called Chinglish by Sue Cheng. Sue Cheng is a East Midlands-based writer. She's mixed race. She's half Chinese and half English, and that is also the identity of her main character in her novel. The book unpicks what it means to be mixed race and to come from different, come from two different sort of worlds and two different cultures. Like the complex nature of that is, whilst also being a very like confessional, joyful sort of young adult novel, sort of suitable anyone between 11 and 15, and then also adults as well. I read this novel and I loved it. So yeah, really recommend that one. Suit Movement by Ben Davis. This is the kind of book that I would really, really recommend for maybe some really able year sixes starting to get ready for high school, or maybe something to pick up for the summer holidays if you're kind of in that space where you're getting ready for high school, because it's a really accessible read, but also ask a lot of your attention, but not too much. There's a lot of joy in this book. It's about a young boy who meets a homeless man, offers him some soup, and then his entire class and his entire school get on board with this movement to feed the homeless. Quite a simple premise, but there's a lot to be said about kindness and some like understanding of our social world and our social political world as well, but in a way that is delivered really accessibly. And when I was thinking about young adult, I had to go Mallory Blackman, because most high schoolers will be asked to read a Mallory Blackman book. Heart Boy is about a boy with a really severe heart condition who will not survive into his adulthood without a heart transplant, who is offered the heart of a pig. And then all of these conversations around what that means to use another animal, to sacrifice another animal for your own survival. And it's been amazing to see conversations around this book happen in the school setting, because young people's minds are opened, and watching them be guided by teachers who understand the stories in other ways, and watching children go, oh my God, I've never thought about the world this way, is sort of where the power of books really comes into play.
Thanks, Jaden. You can find out more on our website, nottstvbookclub.com, and email us at nottstvbc@ntu.ac.uk with your comments and suggestions. And you can find today's books in Nottingham's bookshops, or get along to your local library. Use it or lose it, people. So that's it. We've finished our homework. Join us next month to talk about the much-loved Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And very big, enormous, tremendous thanks to Leanne, Connor and Polis. And thank you to everyone for watching. Goodbye.